Hi, family. So I've snuck away to a little study room in the library to record myself. And I haven't said this talk aloud really yet. I've said it many times in my head. So bear with me. But I'm also going to time it. So I'm just going to start. Thanks for watching. Hi. Please close your eyes and bow your head. Psalm 42 begins, "As a deer longs for flowing streams, so my soul longs for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and behold the face of God? My tears have been my food day and night, while people say to me continually, 'Where is your God?'" Where is my God? Where is your God? Where is our God? Thank you. You can open your eyes. My relationship with God oftentimes feels like this heavy weight in my chest. Sometimes this weight is warm and consoling, bringing me peace as though God's hand is directly placed on my heart. But sometimes this weight is like this soaking knot of confusion and sorrow, just longing for God's hand. Have you felt this soaking knot of confusion in your chest? Have you longed for God? And sometimes I don't feel any weight in my chest at all. Sometimes I feel fed up with God. Sometimes I just want to throw my hands up in the air and say, "What the heck?" And sometimes I just want to pretend like I never knew that weight, like I have never felt God's hands in my life. Faith is a struggle. But it has been in faith that I've experienced living most holy. Holy, like with a W, like more holy. Psalm 42 says, "My soul longs for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God." And I thirst for him because he brings me life and helps me to feel whole. Really, it's been that simple. I thirst because without God, I'm lacking. I crave him. So this talk is entitled God's Call. And I was asked to share with you guys basically just about my life. So here we go. My name is Tanner Emerson. I'm a senior at Loris. I study sociology. I'm from Swisher, Iowa, which is by Cedar Rapids. I went to public school for kindergarten through the 12th grade. I have an older sister who has 3 kids. Cade, he's a senior in high school and is practically my brother. Chet, who loves animals, writing, and riding his scooter. And Charlie, my 5-year-old niece, who dressed up as Darth Vader for Halloween. So that's pretty much enough said about her. She's a stud. My relationship with God goes all the way back to my pre-elementary self, hanging out in my apple tree. My sister is 15 years older than me, so I kind of grew up like an only child. We live in a big old farmhouse on a farmstead. Those 4 acres were all mine growing up. The haymow, the chicken coop, the cornfields, the swing set. I grew up exploring, creating, scraping my knees, and playing in the mud every day. I spent a lot of time with my parents, my best imaginary friend, Carol, my 13 cats, and the big guy. I'd spend hours upon hours playing outside, and when I wasn't playing spies or pilgrims, I was most likely just sitting in my apple tree and talking with God. For some reason, he let me know he was around at a very early age, probably because he knew I needed somebody to play with. There it was, my very simple faith in God, given to me by him in the comfort of my apple tree. I grew up Catholic. My mom, dad, and I have gone to St. Patrick's Church in Cedar Rapids ever since I can remember, really. We prayed before supper, fulfilled our Sunday obligation, and my parents volunteered at our annual fish fry. I sobbed when my parents suggested I begin going to CCD classes. I thought they were talking about altar serving. Then they explained that CCD was religious education, and I cried harder. against my will, I started attending religious education classes on Wednesday nights in second grade. I went to public school, but was never shy to talk about my faith with my friends. None of my very close friends were Catholic, Christian mainly, though. I was strongly convicted in my faith. All my prayers were addressed to God. I really didn't know much about Catholicism. As far as I knew, being Catholic was pretty much the same thing as being just a regular old Christian. I even participated a little bit in Fellowship of Christian Athletes at my school, even though I wasn't a non-denominational Christian or an athlete. I didn't understand how my Catholicism differed from other Christian denominations. I loved God and wanted more of Him. I was thirsting. I had no idea the extent God would soon begin to enter my life. I had planned for quite a while to attend the local community college 20 seconds away from my high school, so I could live at home, get my gen eds out of the way, and buy myself more time before either heading off to the Peace Corps or having to decide on what I wanted to study. Just before my senior year began, I had an epiphany. I don't actually want to live at home anymore. Shoot, I haven't visited a single college, haven't researched a single college. So my mom and I sat down at the kitchen table and literally just brainstormed the names of colleges that we knew. Finally, my mom said, well, what about Loris? I had never heard of that one before. Your great uncle went to school there, she said. He was a priest, so I figured I better check it out. Loris was my first college visit. I immediately fell in love. It was as simple as a decision as that for me. All right, so I'm going to Loris. Glad I don't have to worry about that anymore. I never thought I was going to end up at a private Catholic college. I actually didn't even know average Joes like myself went to those. I was so ready for college when I got there. Many of you can probably relate to this. I signed up for well near every single club, including judo, and it was great. That first semester, many of my friends were talking about signing up for the Antioch retreat, so I did too. It was just another thing for me to do, so I didn't bat an eye until the weekend got closer. I'd only participated in a couple of retreats prior to coming to Loris, and besides experiencing adoration for the first time at one, they were not major highlights in my faith journey. I wasn't used to all of the people praying with me, the praise and worship, or the sharing. Today, I'm still not totally comfortable with retreats and experienced some stress about coming here this weekend. I really did not see it coming that someday I'd be asked to give a talk at a retreat like I am right now. To be honest, I didn't have an epiphany on my Antioch, my first semester of my first year at Loris. To me, my Antioch experience meant breaking away little pieces of a wall I had built around myself and allowing others to see what was beneath. It meant saying, yes, God, you can look at me too. It marked the beginning of my desire to develop an authentic, loving relationship rooted in those soft spots of myself where my self-created wall was beginning to break away. My relationships did not only have to rely on my gifts and what I could do for others, but also what another person could do for me. In high school, my friends often called me the mom of the group and sought out advice from me. I didn't date, so I hardly had any juice to share about boys, and I kept my distance from the drama. I relied on my mom to open up to. Rarely was I ever the one sharing or seeking advice in my group of friends, thus the inevitable building of this wall. I longed for mutual relationships. Antioch was one of my first experiences at Loris that taught me how life-giving it is to be vulnerable. And that was just the start. Antioch was just the beginning. It was not the end-all, be-all. It was a step in my journey towards a relationship with God and a relationship with others. A little earlier in that very first semester of my freshman year, like the second week of school actually, my friend Sean Whitley told me about a bonfire he was invited to at the Focus House. I had no idea what Focus was. All I knew is that I had just been invited to a college party. A little early, needless to say, the party wasn't what I expected. as I learned Focus stood for Fellowship of Catholic University Students. But it did spark a relationship with Rachel Rock, who was a missionary that year. She pursued a relationship with me and asked me if I would attend one of her Bible studies. At the time, I thought Bible study was only for people like my Lutheran grandma. I had never studied the Bible before, but I attended her Bible study for a whole semester. At the end of that first semester, Rachel asked me if I'd like to begin meeting with just her every week to prep for eventually starting my own Bible study. I was like, what? I was completely in shock. I thought she had me pinned all wrong. I was totally cool with just continuing to attend someone else's Bible study. But she ended up getting me. The fall of my sophomore year was my first semester as an RA in Beckman Hall, so I started a Bible study with my residents. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I planned my Bible study from week to week, going off of conversations we'd have and interests of the girls. Those girls helped lead me in Bible study. That Bible study was so much more about them than it was ever about me. Many of those girls who were in Bible study with me that year are in this room right now helping to lead this retreat. It has been beautiful to witness them grow. My soul longed for God to speak through me at that Bible study. I prayed He would take over and lead for me, choosing the scripture, prompting the questions, and sharing. And I really believe He did speak through me in that Bible study. Psalm 42 says, "As a deer longs for flowing streams, so my soul longs for you, O God." I longed for God then. This was one of the very first times I had ever felt Him working through me and speaking through me. When have you longed for God to take over in your life? I grew nearer to God that year. I relied upon Him more than I ever had before. The summer after my sophomore year, God released tension in my heart and opened it up to the discernment of the religious life. When I came to Lourdes, I had no idea what discernment meant. It is a decision-making process that honors the place of God's will in your life. My openness to the religious life kind of happened all in one miraculous moment. It was a surprise, as much of my relationship with God has been. I was helping to chaperone a Steubenville retreat with my youth minister back home. After the very last Mass on the very last day of the retreat, a priest addressed all of the men in the room. He asked those discerning the priesthood to come forward to the altar to receive a blessing. It was powerful to see how many young men walked up to the altar. After the men sat down, a religious sister began speaking to the crowd. She read from a small sheet of paper where she had jotted down words she felt Jesus would like to say directly to each one of the women. It was apparent these were Jesus' words. Through this sister, He asked us, "Would you allow me to gaze upon you?" Would you let Jesus gaze upon you? Like the priest, the sister asked all of the women in the room who were open to discerning the religious life to come forward to receive a blessing. My legs moved beneath me. I was shaking. My mind was numb until all of a sudden I found myself directly in front of the altar, surrounded by many other young women lifting their arms to hug me and put their arms on my shoulders in solidarity. All that touching made me pretty uncomfortable, but I did feel such a peace in saying yes to opening my heart to the religious life. I could find happiness in the vocation of religious life. Me. I began discerning very simply by asking God to lead me toward Him and filling my day with more prayer. I had been discerning for about a month when things at Lourdes started back up again, and I reconnected with someone at a Peace and Justice meeting who I had met my first year of college, but had not seen much of since. This person was a boy, and then he began to surface in my thoughts more and more. I was so confused. I kept thinking, why? Why are you doing this, God? I'm supposed to be discerning. I did not realize that I still was discerning God's will. God knew I would not reach out to him. Would not reach out to get to know this person better if I did not feel affirmation and approval from him. Oh, and if I did not have a lot of nudging too. Basically, I needed help, but God was there dropping hint after hint. After being prepared with this person for a one-on-one talk at campus ministry event, praying 2 novenas, both revealing I ought to be open to a romantic relationship, and often thinking of this person and randomly having them show up in my day, God made it apparent that he wanted me to ask Zach Satterley out on a date. God pried open my heart to discernment, to his will, and inevitably to a romantic relationship, which totally came out of left field. Again. But I was blessed with a strong conviction that dating Zach was just what God wanted me to do at that time. Has God ever surprised you in your faith journey? It's been about a year, and Zach and I are still dating. Woo! Our relationship began after I proclaimed yes to God. I believe God put Zach in my life at just the moment he knew I would need him most. The past 7 months or so I've actually struggled a lot in my faith. About 2 months after Zach and I started dating, I hopped on a plane and flew out to my J term in Italy, and then from Italy to Lisbon, where I'd spend a semester studying abroad. In Portugal, my faith was a roller coaster. I prayed with my Magnificat, which is a daily prayer and reflection book, almost every single morning. Almost every morning I had free. I woke up at 9 in the morning, got ready for my day, went to the kitchen, and oftentimes sat on the balcony of our residence, which just happened to be an old monastery. It was beautiful. I'd sit there reading my Magnificat and begin my day with a sense of calm. There was even a period of time when I prayed the rosary daily, which is kind of foreign to me. It was refreshing to begin my day so intentionally. Along with this peace I was experiencing from the change of pace in my day, I also began to deeply struggle with defending my faith in my anthropology class and my research internship I was doing on socio-religious feasts. I was fascinated with learning about the religiosity of Portugal and how religion came to be there, but deeply conflicted with what it meant for my own personal relationship with Christ. It was difficult for me to identify with my struggle. I just knew my heart was torn. The peace my days brought directly contrasted with the doubt I had in my faith when I was learning about what was going on in the world, what people did, why they did what they did, and how they came to believe what they believed. I felt myself growing skeptical and unsure of how to learn about this world while having faith in something more. My faith had always been so natural for me. Having hope was like my default setting. And I never ached so deeply from internal turmoil with my faith. The psalm goes, "My tears have been my food day and night, while people say to me continually, 'Where is your God?'" I did not know where he was. God put Zach in my life when I needed to rely on someone. Even across the ocean, Zach ended up being my support throughout my struggle, meeting me where I was and recognizing my true desires throughout my time of aching, asking me if I wanted to pray with him in a time where I did not feel like praying at all, at a time when I was fed up with God and was pretending like I had never felt his hand in my life before. Zach was with me, helping me to believe, and sometimes believing for me. Who lifts you up when you are struggling in your faith? A part of being human is allowing others to carry your load. It is very difficult for me to accept help, but I learned another lesson in vulnerability by relying more on Zach to help me through my faith. We are never alone. You are not alone. Now I am mending my relationship with God, and I've been able to reconnect with Him a lot in writing this talk and reminding myself that I do know Him. The psalm calls out, "When shall I come and behold the face of God?" I guess I don't really have to know when or where or how or why. I just have to trust that He will be there. And where He is, there is peace. A large part of me wishes I wish I could conclude this talk by saying, "And now I am called to blank." Because, like us all, I really do like to know these things. But for me, God's call has always been a surprise in my life. A wonderful surprise and a gift, even through times of struggle. As a senior in college, when the world is asking me to know my call and my plan for life, all I can honestly admit is that right now, I believe my call is to be here, giving this talk to all of you. Because it has always been this simple. And through simplicity and surprises, God leads me to Him. Thank you. And that's the end of my talk. Thanks, parents, for watching and listening.